Roy Jones Jr. and Floyd Mayweather are going at it. Apparently, Roy Jones did an interview where they asked him about Floyd Mayweather and his career compared, and he said the only thing that Floyd is better at than him is making money. He was the better fighter, blah, 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 blah. And Floyd Mayweather took to the internet to do this. So let me start this off because this one hurt me. This one hurt me because this is probably two of my favorite fighters of all time, right? And Floyd is a king of petty. He goes and plays the knockouts of Roy Jones past his prime, which in my childhood were one of the hardest things I had to deal with. I was a huge Roy Jones fan. So
Mayweather fought past his prime. Just saying.
That's what I'm there.
Hold on. We're gonna get into that.
Let's break it down.
No, we're gonna get into that. So Roy, he posted the knockouts, the Antonio Tarver, and he posted that. That was his rebuttal. And apparently they've been going back at it for a while. He and also Roy said this about him.
Him in the rankings. Mayweather, where would you put him in?
Who?
Where would you mentioned Floyd, where would you put him in the rankings? Mayweather, where would you put him in?
Who?
All right, let me ask you a question.
If you don't respect Muhammad Ali, how can I respect you?
That's what Roy. I don't know what interview when he did this, but
where did Floyd say he doesn't respect Muhammad Ali? I think Floyd what he thought was that he feels like
he was better.
He was better. His career was better than Ali. That's his opinion.
Yeah.
Any boxer is going to say some shit like that.
Absolutely, and you don't because you allegedly say he doesn't respect Muhammad Ali, so you don't respect him. Come on now.
Well, let's be fair.
I rock with Roy. Don't get me wrong. Roy is
great. He was great. You know absolutely, me too.
So that's what's going on. So let's get into that.
Also, I heard it also that Roy has said that Ray Leonard would be a prime.
Ray Leonard would. I mean, which a lot of people feel the same way.
I don't agree. I don't agree with that. And I respect the legacy of Ray Leonard by far.
Same.
But I'm just saying though, like you gotta look at like when you compare them the same age and everything through their careers and shit like that.
Yeah.
Fucking Ray Leonard, when I'm saying was on a decline by the time he hit his 30s.
Yeah, that's true.
Floyd was still competing at a high level in terms of boxing ring IQ.
Yep.
Well, so let's get into that. Who was better in their prime, Roy Jones or Floyd Mayweather? No, let's not talk about after Roy decided to go up in weight chasing companies because there's different elements. People age differently.
I think Roy was amazing in his prime. There's no one else like him. He was pound for pound great in his prime. I think Floyd is just better in terms of longevity. With this career, and even he was still competing at a high level to the end of his career. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Roy was definitely different though. Roy was definitely must see TV. You know what I mean? He was definitely must see TV. Because then you had the Bernard Hopkins era. Remember, Bernard Hopkins had his run as a pound for pound great in between then. And then you know what I'm saying, of course, Oscar's always been around since he came out through the Olympics in terms of things he did. But he was but he took a few bumps and L's, but still Oscar had a draw and he was still great in terms of Oscar was willing to fight everybody. He was willing to fight everybody out there with a name. You know what I mean?
Right cornerback.
And then after the Floyd and Oscar fight, that's when you had the Money Mayweather era. That's when Floyd really, and even before the Money Mayweather era, Floyd was still, a dominant. He just didn't have those big names, big fights like he wanted until he got to Oscar De La Hoya.
Christine, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jamel said it really, really well. I think the only thing you can argue maybe is that maybe Roy was a little bit more exciting at times. But other than that, I mean, Floyd was the man, and the longevity, like he said, and the way he would finesse his opponents. Roy, okay, if we want to say, I think Roy might have been a little bit more exciting, but it's so
a little bit.
more exciting. So how about the thing is this? You know, we got an Uncle Rico situation. You know what I'm saying? Oh, back in the day, you know, and
Yeah, that's
and
what it is. That's what it is. We all do it. We always give the past generation more respect than the one that just fade or here or fading now.
Exactly. We can equally say that they were both great, respectively, in the era that they were in and with the opponents that they faced. It doesn't have to be a competition, you know. And I understand. I understand Floyd getting like petty with him, though, you know, because this just came out. I mean, this came up recently. You know, the who. I mean, come on, anybody can mention Floyd Mayweather's name, probably before Roy Jones Jr. Like globally. In my opinion, if you say Floyd Mayweather or Roy Jones Jr., I think more people are going to know who Floyd is. And that's just my personal opinion.
Absolutely. That's a fact. I'll say this. And I love Roy. I love Floyd. I love both, probably both my favorite fighters from the 90s on, right? Roy Jones, to me, was the most dominant fighter in his prime. There was nothing that could touch him. Offensively, he belittled people in the ring. The biggest question mark with him was his competition, right? I mean, outside of James Toney, Bernard Hopkins, people questioned it. So he had to challenge himself, go up and wait. And me and Jamal have spoken about this, and that really hurt his career. The one thing I will say about Floyd, he knew where he stood, what he needed to do, and where to be. So did he challenge himself like a Roy in terms of, no, he didn't have to. He had people in his division, right? I'll say, what do you think is the better era? Floyd Mayweather, Money Mayweather, or Pretty Boy? Because Pretty Boy was more.
I prefer Pretty Boy, but
I think a lot of people.
I respect the craft that Money made because he had to change it up. He had to be, and you know what I'm saying. He couldn't be all offense. He had to, you know what I'm saying. He had to tighten up defense, and he didn't waste punches. He was, like I said, my favorite fight in terms of Money Mayweather is when he fought Cotto. And it was past. Yeah, it was past when it was to happen, but when it happened, it was still an exciting fight.
Yeah, and I think Money May gave these young boxers, up-and-coming boxers, kind of like a marker, you know, kind of like some hope. Okay, we can make some money like that, you know, doing what we love. I mean, some people say it ruined the sport, and maybe to an extent it did, but also we had these young kids looking up to him, be like, man, I want to have a car like that. I got to work hard, because we know that Mayweather, he would do whatever. He would get up at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. He would run. His sparring partners had to always be ready.
That's stuff they don't see though. He was dedicated to his craft.
Exactly, and that's why he was where he was.
So this is my point. If you were to compare both eras, the Pretty Boy versus the Roy Jones prime era, I mean, those were probably the most comparable years in a sense. It's not even an argument that Floyd handled his past prime or past his having all of his skill set available to him better than Roy. But in their prime where they can do everything, who was the better fighter when it came to Pretty Boy and Roy? And I think that's where the argument can actually be made for Roy Jones. In terms of longevity, it's not an argument. Roy stood way too long.
Roy was all offense though. Roy was still all offense.
No, his reflexes and defense
was good at it. And you know what I'm saying, he had great precision because he can hit you from across the ring with some shit. But at the same time, Pretty Boy Floyd was still more aggressive than Money Man, and he
was getting hit though. Castillo was hitting him.
He was still more. He was more defensive than Roy though. He's still more defensive than Roy.
Yeah, he was.